today. We are bringing you today's service with the Reverend Kevin Carson and Vic Allen, who's our media tech and media support. We welcome you to a place that is a little different. If you were in a traditional Christian church, you would come Sunday mornings and you would you would know what to expect. There'd be talk about the Bible, there'd be verses that would be shared, tenets explored, and Jesus would definitely be mentioned. If this was a Buddhist Sangha, you would expect to discuss the Dharma together in order to bring about and maintain awareness in all things. But this is a Unitarian Universalist church. We will discuss Christianity at times. We will discuss Buddhist awareness at times. We will also discuss our responsibility to the earth, how to seek our own truths, and historical figures and events from our own faith. We might talk about ethics and values, or one of our 7 principles, or a social justice issue. You never quite know what is going to be discussed, and most of us like it that way. Unitarian Universalism is not an easy faith. You have to do a lot of the work yourself. Your minister is never going to give you a direct answer and tell you what to believe in. There are no creeds or dogmas. So stick around. You might love today's service, and maybe next week's will be more your cup of tea. But whatever the subject is, we hope that you take something meaningful from each service. Take something home that you can sit with and ponder. So no matter what your reason is for being here today, we are welcome. You are welcome. We are happy to see you and that you chose to show up this Sunday. So we always like to start our time with a few announcements. There are just a few today. First of all, a gentle reminder that next week is our second Sunday shared meal. So please bring an item to share and plan to stick around and visit with one another. It is held directly after the service. Savory items are usually a little less prolific than desserts, so let me see if you can bring something. And lastly, next, we would like to thank all of those that helped put together our social Friday night, specifically Molly Brinkerhoff and Catherine Giovanna, and all the others that helped. And they have a message very specifically they'd like me to share. So from the Pledge Committee, the Black and White Pledge Kickoff Party was a wonderful fun. If you weren't there, they were sorry that you missed it. And thank you to everyone that helped make it a success. There are pledge packets addressed to everyone on the membership list. We can save on postage if you will collect your packet this Sunday. It is just over on the table. You can make your pledge for the coming year, mail the pledge cards back, or return it to the box, which is right underneath that thermometer over there. There are some decorations from the Pledge Kickoff Party still up downstairs in Fellowship Hall, up being the key word. If you can help take them down, stay a few minutes after the service and help Catherine downstairs. And thank you again, everybody. She says, let's have a great pledge drive, as we get into the black. So that's from our pledge. Are they out in the garage? No, they're down on the other side? Okay. So we could also use some help that could move some tables. Okay, and Victoria, would you like to say a few more words?
I brought water just in case my throat gets dry, and I hope I don't spill it. So, first off, the roses. It's really a joy, but these roses are ones planted by my mother. I don't do much to them. I try to keep them watered, but they are absolutely gorgeous. They did not like the heat, but they do like cooler weather. So before I start on my little speech, we do need cookies for coffee hour. Jim and Rosie, of course, brought some nice little cookies. But if you can bring some and we have extras, we'll store them. We won't go down and eat them. We'll bring them out at some point in the future, and they're very much appreciated. A few weeks ago, I'm going to have to lower this. A few weeks ago, Molly Brinkerhoff asked me to give a short talk on why I pledged to this church. But I sort of altered the title in my mind to Why Wouldn't I Pledge to this Unitarian church? About 7 years ago, I signed my name in the members book when Reverend Lynn was our minister, and I joined a kinship group and belong to a faith that has become a stabilizing influence in my life. Reverend Lynn's sermons introduced me to Unitarianism. Reverend Jackie added her ideas, or sometimes very humorous sermons, one on coffee I will never forget. And Reverend Kevin's sermons inspire me. He has introduced us to those who died as they questioned accepted beliefs, or those who have led the way to the present. Mardi brings stories and books linked to the weekly sermon, and the songs Jessica plays are tied to our theme. Even the cover of your order of service is pertinent. These are reasons why I pledge. The video we watched last Sunday, instead of a sermon, dealt with how UUs can deal with climate change and promote sustainability. Plans are being laid to form our own climate focus group and possibly join forces with the Pocatello Unitarians. Restarting a book group to exchange ideas will bring us together during the week. And as Arthur mentioned at the pledge party, our UU philosophy holds us together. These are also reasons why I pledge. But what I love most about coming to church is meeting established members or new folks and listening to their stories. We each have gifts to offer this church. Friday night's pledge party, which you've already heard Annette praise, is due to the dedication of Catherine Giovanna and Molly Brinkerhoff. I helped some and had the good fortune to work hard and to be with two women who are friends. They settled all details amicably and with laughter. Their husband's help was essential. It took a lot of work to change the fellowship to a black and white theme. But isn't our church a place where we gather and celebrate? This is another reason why I pledge. In 1974, I moved to Southeast Alaska, and I was broke. That's how a lot of Alaskans get to Alaska, and they can't get out for years, and by then they're already seduced. And I was careful even after I was earning money. Now that I'm retired, I have choices on where to donate. Now, I could buy a Cadillac and pay for it for years, but being practical and a lover of Volkswagens, I understand this church needs my donation just as I need this church. Unitarianism offers me the freedom to learn about ideas that help me survive difficult times. Giving to an organization that works to improve life on earth is worthy of my pledge. I love the interior of this church. I know we have cinder block walls, but these seats are so comfortable. Sometimes you have to prop your eyes open, but not very often. We have various meeting rooms, and we are a part of Idaho Falls history. This church has been here more than 100 years. Am I correct in that? No, says Molly. Okay. Yeah. When we became a church, but I mean the building itself has gone through transformations. That's what I'm thinking. So the building, because it's aging, like all objects, needs upkeep, and I try to help with that. And keeping the trees, shrubs, and flowers alive with only water is a joy as I watch them grow. Our garden and our building is another connection I have and a reason why I pledge. I have a vested interest in this church and its continuation as a religion, philosophy that offers a different message. It's essential that we continue to function in this community. And this is why I pledge.
Thank you, Victoria. I think the plan is while we're going through our pledge drive for the next month, we should be able to have a testimonial every week that we're going to be able to be starting off our Sunday services with. It's important to remember why people come and why it's important. So for now, that's the end of our announcements. Please make sure all of your cell phones are turned off, and we will take a moment to stand and greet one another. Take a few minutes to say hello, and I will bring you back with a chime. So there was an additional announcement wasn't given, and that is the men's group is meeting this Friday night here at the church at 5:30. So men are all welcome. So now let's settle in, calm our hearts, our minds, and our breathing. Let's see quietly, breathe deeply and consciously, and listen to the ringing of the peace bowl reverberate into this sacred space. I will ring it 3 times. So please read with me out loud our church's covenant. You will find the words in your order of service. Love is the spirit of this community, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And the chalice lighting I chose today is by Leah Ungiri. She writes, "Here we are together, each facing our different human tasks, or maybe the same central ones, to embrace the lessons life delivers, to discern and respond as we grow, to refuse harm and cherish flourishing. May we know ourselves as vessels of infinite possibility, holders of each other's heartaches and tales of joys alike, weavers of one story in which each of us have our part."
Good morning. Our call to worship this morning is the poem "What We Need Is Here" by Wendell Berry. Geese appear high over us, pass, and the sky closes, abandon, as in love or sleep holds them to their way, clear in the ancient faith. What we need is here. And we pray not for a new earth or heaven, but to be quiet in heart and in eye, clear. What we need is here. I invite you now to rise in body or spirit and join in singing our opening hymn, number 360, "Here We Have Gathered."
Here we have gathered, gathered side by side, circle of kinship, come and step inside.
Good morning. Today I'm going to share with you a story about Kanati, the lucky hunter, and his wife Selu, the corn. It's about our relationship with food, and it was recorded by James Mooney in his book History, Myths, and Sacred Formulas of the Cherokees in 1910. This tale was told to him by a Cherokee elder woman, Wananaui. So a man and a woman reared a large family of children in comfort and plenty, with very little trouble providing food for them. Every morning the father, Kanati, went forth and very soon returned home, bringing with him a deer, a turkey, or some other animal or fowl. At the same time, the mother Selu went out and soon returned with a large basket filled with ears of corn, which she shelled and pounded to a mortar, thus making a meal for bread. When the children grew up, seeing with what apparent food was provided for them, they talked to each other about it. They wondered if they ever saw such things. They wondered that they never saw such things that their parents brought in. At last, one proposed to watch when their parents went out and to follow them. Accordingly, the next morning, the plan was carried out. Those who followed the father saw him stop a short distance away from the cabin and turn over a large stone that appeared to be just carelessly leaned against each other. On looking closely, they saw an entrance to a large cave, and in this cave were many different kinds of animals and birds, such as their father had sometimes brought in for food. The man standing at the entrance called a deer, which was lying at some distance back of some of the other animals. It rose immediately as it heard the call and came close to him. He picked it up, closed the mouth of the cave, and returned, not once seeming to suspect what his sons had done. So when the old man was fairly out of sight, his sons, rejoicing how they had outwitted him, left their hiding place and went to the cave, saying they would show the old folks that they too could bring in something. Well, they moved the stone away, though it was very heavy, and they were obliged to use all their united strength. When the cave was open, the animals, instead of waiting to be picked up, all made a rush for the entrance, and leaping past the frightened and bewildered boys, scattered in all directions and disappeared into the wilderness, while the guilty offenders could do nothing but gaze in stupefied amazement as they saw them escape. There were animals of all kinds, large and small, buffalo, deer, elk, antelope, raccoons and squirrels, even catamounts and panthers, wolves and foxes, and many others, all fleeing together. At the same time, birds of every kind were seen emerging from the opening, and all of the same wild confusion as the quadrupeds: turkeys, geese, swans, ducks, quails, eagles, hawks, and owls. Those who followed the mother saw her enter a small cabin, which they had never seen before, and closed the door. The culprits found a small crack through which they could peer. They saw the woman place a basket on the ground and, standing over it, shake herself vigorously, jumping up and down, and lo and behold, large ears of corn began to fall into the basket. When it was well filled, she took it up, and placing it on her head, came out, fastened the door, and prepared their breakfast as usual. When the meal had been finished in silence, the man spoke to his children, telling them that he was aware of what they had done, that now he must die, and they would be obliged to provide for themselves. He made bows and arrows for them, then sent them out to hunt for the animals which they had turned loose. Then the mother told them that as they had found out her secret, she could do nothing more for them, that she would die, and they must drag her body over the ground, and that wherever her body was dragged, corn would come up. Of, of this they were to make their bread. She told them that they must always save some for seed to plant every year. We will now sing up the children.
As we leave this friendly place, love give light to every face. May the kindness which we learn light our hearts till we return.
Well, it's now time for our joys and concerns. First of all, do we have any in our chat box? Well, let's start with that one.
We have a message this morning from Dennis Jorgensen.
Yay!
His friend, who attended church here with him in 2022. Her name is Chantel. She passed away at age 42 and left 5 children behind, the youngest being a year and a half old.
Yeah.
And Dennis says that Chantel will be greatly missed.
Yes, she will be. Yeah. Chantel is married to a guy named Corey, who is with a band that many of you may see around town called Papa Stitch. They're going to have a fundraiser next Sunday to try to help raise money for some of Chantel's expenses. So, let's see. We have a joy from Victoria. The fall temperatures are allowing her burning bush to become red. She says a sprinkle of red is so welcome this time of year. And we have a joy from Molly. They had another wonderful experience in Yellowstone, seeing 4 wolf packs, 14 grizzlies, black bears, and many other critters. It's amazing what you experience in Yellowstone. Another joy from Molly. It says the Boise Hills are on fire, and our son and his family have had, that's a joy, had to prep for evacuation. Fortunately, they didn't have to. The homes were burned, but it came awfully close. No homes were burned. It was all in Boise. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, we're glad that they are okay and that it was more minimal. A concern from Molly for Steve and Rhonda White's dog Chester. They are taking him to Salt Lake to see a specialist to figure out what's wrong. He is such a sweet pup. I'm sorry to hear that. Joy from Arthur and Annalise. Their son Daniel is, managing a project for the World Metro Organization. Meteorological organization. And why don't you just say this? I'm having a hard time with your handwriting. I'm sorry, honey. About climate change, okay. Wow. That's incredible. Our local paper even had a comment about it. That's fantastic. Yes, thank you, Arthur. And a last joy from Victoria. On Wednesday, she's going to have a new right hip. And she's very excited. That's been a long time coming, hasn't it? And Kevin has he'd like to share.
Yeah, my first candle that was a joy. I had the privilege of officiating the wedding this last Wednesday of Ian Gladstone and Susan Hain, and I wanted to wish them all the best as they start their new married life together. And my concern is my second candle is for all the people suffering in the southeastern states due to Hurricane Helene. It is just absolutely horrific, and I'll talk a little bit about that more in my sermon this morning.
And we will also light last candle to represent all of those joys, concerns, and sorrows we choose not to share today.
Well, our reading this morning is from an unusual source. It's an article titled, "What is Swedish Death Cleaning? How the Method Can Help You Declutter" by Mariah Thomas. And it was posted on the Good Housekeeping website in May of 2023. There's no shortage of home decluttering methods, but when it comes to downsizing your belongings, including furniture, clothing, shoes, kitchen essentials, and even documents to prepare for your older years, Swedish death cleaning is an approach that is worth considering. Swedish death cleaning is a well-known concept in Swedish and Scandinavian culture, where you work on eliminating unnecessary items from your home so loved ones won't be burdened with the task after you pass. The thorough organizing method involves editing everything from furniture and clothing to the ever-growing piles of documents that's been difficult to control over time. It's a slow process that has been all the rage lately, thanks to Peacock's new show, The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning, which is produced by Amy Poehler. While Swedish death cleaning is all about holding on to essential belongings, pinpointing the items you want to keep and part ways with isn't an easy process. In 2017, Swedish author Margareta Magnusson coined the term in her New York Times best-selling book, The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning: How to Free Yourself and Your Family from a Lifetime of Clutter. In her guide, she urges those 65 and up to partake in the task, though it never hurts to begin earlier, especially since decluttering is a great stress reliever. When starting, focus on areas you may find the easiest to tackle. According to Magnusson's book, the attic or basement may be best since they are more likely to have unnecessary excess items like broken seasonal decorations. Choose belongings you don't have emotional attachments to and determine the category you want to scrap first, such as unwanted clothes, books, or even half-empty bottles of skincare. There's actually no time limit or definitive checklist to know when you're done. It's all about how you feel and the goals you want accomplished. An offering to support the mission of this church will now be given and gratefully received. Over the last week, I have watched a lot of videos about the incredible devastation in the southeastern states in the wake of Hurricane Helene. Many of the towns hit hardest by the torrential rains and flooding, such as Irwin, Tennessee, Hot Springs, North Carolina, and Damascus, Virginia, are well known to me and hold a special place in my heart as so-called trail towns along the Appalachian Trail. I grew up in the Southeast, and when Marty and I started backpacking throughout the southern Appalachians in the late 1980s and early 1990s, we often visited small mountain communities like these that were established along the river valleys by settlers in the 19th century. In fact, the Appalachian Trail pathway leads straight along the main streets of both Hot Springs and Damascus, while it crosses the Nolichucky River just a few miles outside of downtown Irwin. At least it used to. Now the bridge across the Nolichucky has been washed away, along with dozens of others in the area, including those on interstates and other major highways. And the flooding was unprecedented in recorded history. Some are even calling it a 1,000 or even 5,000 year event, though it would be hard to corroborate either assertion since no written records that old exist, obviously. We can only rely on geologic evidence. The damage is unbelievably widespread and catastrophic, and there are already more than 200 known fatalities, with hundreds more still missing. It may take decades to recover in some places. We should hold those affected by the hurricane in our thoughts and prayers and help them in any way that we can. There was one video filmed by a drone that really struck me. It was overhead footage of Lake Lure near Chimney Rock, North Carolina. And the thing that caught my attention was the incredible volume of debris that had washed into what was once a beautiful mountain lake. The surface was completely covered in all sorts of debris that was mostly the splintered wood of trees, homes, barns, and businesses. But scattered throughout were other artifacts of civilization, such as appliances, plastic containers, canoes, kayaks, and even several pontoon boats. It was as if entire communities upstream had been thrown into a giant blender and pulverized before being poured into the rivers and streams and washed into the lake. It is a reminder that among the hundreds of thousands of acres of mountain forest in the region, there are lots of homes and businesses and small towns, and even a few larger cities like Asheville. And like anywhere else in America, these places are filled with the accumulated stuff that modern society considers to be essential, or at least things that most of us find desirable to possess. When something like Hurricane Helene comes along and our world is tossed into chaos, it exposes the enormous number of things with which we have lovingly cluttered up our lives, and it becomes painfully obvious what the true necessities of human life boil down to. I have never suffered the loss of a home due to a fire or a natural disaster, but I can imagine the feeling of grief those who have must feel. Suddenly losing the accumulated mementos and practical items you're familiar with must feel overwhelming. We can understandably become attached to objects that hold a special meaning to us, items that may evoke a precious memory, such as irreplaceable family photos. When we lose them, it can be a painful lesson about the impermanence of things. But at the same time, perhaps, it is an important reminder of what is truly essential in life. Buddhism teaches that that attachment is the source of our suffering. And this includes not only attachment to material things and other people, but also attachment to the feelings associated with them. Letting go of such attachment is a spiritual discipline that can be very difficult for most of us, and it is not something that comes naturally. I have tried Buddhist meditative practices at several points in my life, but I have not found that they worked well for me. I could even argue that some part of the pain of attachment is probably helpful in life, but I agree that decluttering our attachments generally is better for us, whether they are material or emotional. Henry David Thoreau famously said, "Our life is frittered away by detail. Simplify, simplify." And though simplify, simplify is admittedly the kind of catchy motto you find on coffee mugs and t-shirts, it does not diminish the lesson of the phrase. He was admonishing us that it is too easy to allow our lives to become overly cluttered with physical stuff, too many activities, and emotional details to the point that living can become lost in the process. As the psychologist Robert Puff writes, we often go through life exhausted because we take on too many things, bring too much complexity to our days, and don't have time to enjoy life. We are in need of simplifying our lives. As an advocate for simplifying our lives in order to live in a less stressful, more fulfilling way, Puff suggests a 4-step process, which he describes as follows. To simplify our lives, first we notice where our time is going. Next, we adjust it so it works best for us. Then we say no to requests for our time. We don't have to take on so many activities. And last, we reduce our spending so we don't feel we have to give time to work that can prevent our enjoying life now. Advice like this is pretty straightforward, even if it is easier said than done. And you can find many good authors and resources for further suggestions on decluttering and simplifying your life. Ideas like the somewhat ominous-sounding Swedish death cleaning I described in our reading are hardly new. One really good resource that I came across many years ago is Dwayne Elgin's 1981 book, Voluntary Simplicity, which has a newer edition printed in 2010. And that book addresses both material and emotional decluttering through the principles of voluntary simplicity, which are based on frugal consumption, ecological awareness, and personal growth. Elgin describes how we can make a variety of lifestyle changes for both our own physical and spiritual benefit and that of the planet. And the idea of voluntary simplicity became very popular for a couple of decades. Now, over 40 years later, the need is even greater. Modern life is more complicated and frenzied than ever. And a storm like Helene is a harbinger of powerful storms to come, made worse due to a warmer planet caused by our overconsumption of fossil fuels. I am hoping the tragedy of the storm will be a wake-up call for some of the people living in denial. What is more certain is that we can either work together toward a simpler, more sustainable lifestyle now and try to navigate and mitigate the future harm, or nature will simply force to do it later. This doesn't mean we have to abandon modern civilization or endure some kind of forced deprivation, but it does mean we need to scrutinize the choices we make and their cumulative impact on the planet. Do we need all this stuff and the energy required to produce it, especially the many throwaway items that we take for granted? One of the lessons I learned during my backpacking trips, hiking through the wilderness for days or even months at a time, was just how simple our physical needs really are. Once you cover the basic need for water, food, air, and shelter from the environment, anything else is merely a luxury. It is a lesson that many folks impacted by the hurricane are learning, whether they like it or not. Suddenly, something as common as electricity or access to the internet seems far less important. But please know that I'm not trying to trivialize the real suffering that is happening right now. Even those fortunate enough to have survived without injury or major damage to their property are suffering. Having electricity and running water in those mountains has only been the norm for about 100 years. But few of us today are prepared to live in such primitive, hardscrabble conditions. It is also important to remember that clean water and proper sanitation has saved more lives than all the medical advances in history. So returning to the days of common outbreaks of dysentery and other waterborne illnesses is not something we would ever wish for. Already, authorities are warning people about the safety risks associated with using untreated water even to flush toilets. Floodwaters are especially dangerous, and there are a few water sources even high in the mountains that are still safe to drink without filtering, no matter how clean and pristine they may appear. There's nothing wrong, of course, with enjoying some luxuries in life, but this is where moral and aesthetic choices come into the picture. How much extra stuff are we comfortable having when so many of our neighbors are lacking in the basic necessities? And knowing that our American levels of consumption would be unsustainable if everyone were to live as we do, requiring the equivalent of at least 5 Earths worth of resources, what does this teach us about the need to take a hard look at our choices? All this extra stuff can even become a burden rather than a source of joy. And this is especially true of the trivialities and complexity of daily life that steal our time. But making the deliberate choices to prioritize the things in life that really matter and contribute to our overall well-being is not always easy, nor is it something you just do and complete. It may sound trite, but achieving simplicity is a journey, not a destination. Decluttering our lives is a process, and even just letting go of material possessions may require a multi-layered approach that opens us to deeper considerations about how we wish to live. As the author Leo Babauta describes it, simplicity is simply identifying what's essential and letting go of the rest. But when you start decluttering, you might not really know what's important. You look at some clothes and decide that you haven't worn something in a couple of years, so probably it's not that important, right? But as you peel back the first layer or two, you start hitting against a harder layer. Is this something I should keep or not? Does it really matter to me? What do I consider important in my life? What kind of life do I want to live? What do I truly value? Most of us could make choices that let us live lighter on the earth, but the process of decluttering is more about uncovering our values and priorities and letting go of things that do not serve those values and priorities. It is an embrace of the transient nature of life and our impermanent but beautiful place within the interdependent web of all existence. It is a kind of circular feedback loop that helps us home in on the kind of life we wish to live and come into better alignment with it. It isn't just about getting rid of stuff, though this can be an important part of the process. To the familiar phrase, reduce, reuse, recycle, we might add, reimagine. Decluttering lets us reimagine our priorities and the life that we wish to live. And this transitional season of fall, like spring, is a great time to give this practice some attention. There's a reason spring cleaning is a popular idea, after all. Something in these seasons just seems to call on us to confront our relationship with stuff and to declutter and prepare for the months ahead. When we begin to let go of our attachment to things, that we realize that we can place a lot of power in objects that we associate with our identity, values, aspirations, and memories. But then, as Leo Babauta puts it, we realize that this power is within us all along, not outside of us. This is how decluttering can become a spiritual practice with practical benefits. We don't all need to live simply in a cabin by Walden Pond like Thoreau to discover clarity and purpose, though I find the idea very appealing at times. It is something we can do by simply living with greater intentionality, decluttering our lives, and helping to declutter the world by extension. So, simplify, simplify. I invite you to rise in body or spirit once again and join in singing our closing hymn, number 16, "'Tis a Gift to be Simple."
Tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be free, tis a gift to calm down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in a place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn, turn will be our delight, till by turning, turning we come round right. 'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn, turn will be our delight, till by turning, turning we come round right.
Our closing words are the poem "When I Am Among the Trees" by Mary Oliver. When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, equally the beech, the oaks, and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I would almost say that they save me, and daily. I am so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me, the trees in their leaves stir in their leaves and call out, "Stay a while." The light flows from their branches, and they call again. "It's simple," they say, "and you too have come into this world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine."
We will now extinguish our chalice with the following words. If you wish, please join me in the recitation. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Please join us for coffee hour next.